Every Sunday at 5 p.m. studio, Strange Universe. Strange Universe.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Are you a fan of rock and roll? Does it get your feet tapping and your hands clapping? Then be sure to check out Crypt Rick's Rock and Roll Hour every Friday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern and Standard Time on Studio B right here at RevolutionRadio.com, where we get down and talk all things rock.
This is the People's War. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you bring the machine, will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well, now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me.
Revolution Radio.
Tune into Revolution Radio. Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion. Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio. Tune into Revolution Radio, Studio A for Omnium Gatherum, a kaleidoscope of discussion. Thursdays at 4 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 p.m. only at Revolution Radio.
The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. Travel without movement.
Greetings, Earth Explorers, and welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future, and in here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear, you will be safely traveling with us as we endeavor to treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. This is the voice of the revolution. And we are streaming to you live with our good friends at Revolution Radio on freedomslips.org, the #1 listener-supported network in the entire country. We're also streaming to you live on several video platforms. Yes, YouTube tonight, and Rumble, and Twitch, and X, and DLive, and Foxhole, and Truth Refugee. Everywhere where good podcasting can be found live and free. So glad all of you showed up in the chat room. Wow, look at this. See, when we added YouTube back, or they gave me my YouTube channel back, it greatly expanded the chat room. Let's see, JCW Old Lace is here. K.O. Kelly out in Vegas is here. Tim H. is here off YouTube. Truth Frequency News is here. John Porton, Big D 1955. Boy Dogs 2, Stanley Mays. Tim H. Let's see. Well, good evening to you too. It's good to be here. I worked hard today, which is kind of difficult to do when you go into the hospital for 3 days to get dried out. No, it wasn't that kind of drying out. It was drying out from holding water. But we got it all off, so we're in good shape now. But don't have the stamina, don't have the I don't have the ass that I did before I went in. But we'll get it back. Don't worry about it. So I'm running a little slow tonight, but not too bad. Ammon T223 is here. Big D 1955. Truth Refugee, East Coast 20. And Coates. Good to have you here. Deborah Pollard over on YouTube. Yes, I like spending time with my family here on America Free Radio as well. Tatanka Dave is here. Oh, that's good. Cromwell's here. This is good. Tupac Sugar is here. Jem, that's a new one. I appreciate you very much being out there. Did you guys get the notifications? Are they live on YouTube again, the notifications? Did they actually put everything back in place? That's kind of cool. Cato Hagen is here. True Tarrant is here. Let's see. James Bright, Tardigrade Tickler, Gino. Well, I missed you too, Gino. I definitely missed you guys. It was a shame what they did to us. And I don't think we're ever going to forgive them, nor will we ever forget. James Bright is here. Bad monkey, no banana. Very good. Good. 86 Troll. Original Old Dog. Flippy 2. Della Meow. Gosh, it just gets better. This is great. Well, that's quite the crowd. It's pretty good. Foxhole's got Rasta and Johnny Dangerously. Oh, you've been fixing your PC. Well, I'm glad it's fixed. That's good when you can fix a PC. I had to replace this monitor. I had my original 27-inch monitor. I probably had it for about 8 years now. And we have put it through the mill, baby. But it finally gave up the ghost. So I replaced it a couple days ago. So now we're back to 3 monitors, and I can see all of you and still be able to run stuff. It's good. I could use 4. Yes, I could. But I mean, I'm not going to do 4 monitors till I move into the new house, which I'm happy to say we've had our first inspection for what's called certificate of occupancy, because we finished all 16 of our inspections, passed them all. Not the first time, most of them, but we did the punch lists and got it done. And we have a short punch list for the certificate of occupancy. I forgot to mud and tape the ceiling in the garage because I have the man cave, is above the garage. So when you have a living space on the second floor, you have to fire tape the first floor. So that's happening today. They're taping that today. We should have it, I don't know, we should have it sanded and the second coat on and pretty much done tomorrow. And then we have to do a little bit of cleanup on the staircase. He didn't like the space I have between the stairs, so he's making me put some risers in there. But we'll get that done hopefully by this weekend. And then we get the certificate of occupancy. They set the meter, and we get water. And guess what we get to get rid of? The temporary pole and the porta potty. Wow, it's been there for 3 years. Let's get rid of them, and then we'll be able to shower with hot water, and it'll be great. Just like a real house. I know it's been a long time coming. Tell me about it. Jeez. Anyway, I'm glad you guys followed me on Facebook. It's been a journey, hasn't it? We broke ground 3 years ago in the summer. We fought weather. We fought lending issues, and we finally slugged our way all the way through it. And now that's because we're finishers. That's why. John, that's why, because we're finishers. We don't quit around here. Gosh, I wish things would settle down in the world. Don't you? Washaki wins here. 86 Troll is here. This is good. What is that? Cast iron instead of Geritol. It's funny you should mention that today. Part of the blood work came back that, my iron is a little bit low. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's always been high. Of course, they drained a half a liter of blood out of me while I was in the hospital. Yeah, half a liter. So they brought it on. And so while my body's trying to rebuild all that blood they drained out of me, the iron's low. So now they're going to say, well, you need some iron. So, and I remembered the old, what was it? It was Lawrence Welk. Now, I know there are a lot of people in my audience that age that remember Lawrence Welk. Remember that? Lawrence Welk? And we have the beautiful sisters dancing, and, he had the little, what did they call it? The baton? Yeah. It was interesting. But the commercials, even back then, what was it? They've been around for 70 years? Geritol? Well, when I used to watch it, I was a little kid because my grandparents watched it, and what they watched, we watched, because it only had 6 channels. And that was liberal. I mean, California, we had more channels than anybody else in the country. But the commercials were still about drugs. Still about, supplements, one supplement or another, or a vacuum cleaner or whatever. But yeah, it was Geritol. Oh, Geritol. That's right. It wasn't, Geritol. That's right, Ammon. Yeah. Iron, poor blood. You remember that? How did you know? How did you know? Nobody. You were lethargic, couldn't get out there and play the shuffleboard, couldn't climb the stairs. Geritol. Yeah. That was crazy, wasn't it? Well, thanks, Dave. What is it? Dave's Waffle House? Weird. I was just thinking of me today. Good to see you, Mr. Agnew. So good to be here. So good to be here. Hopefully we can pick up our trend where we were with YouTube when Google decided, I was too dangerous for their community. I'm still, Doan's pills. Oh my gosh, I remember that too. I was too dangerous to their community. And speaking of dangerous, you remember the Monroe Doctrine, right? Well, the Monroe Doctrine was established to basically keep Europe out of our hemisphere. Okay, because like the Earth is divided into halves by the Atlantic Ocean, and the Monroe Doctrine was that we, the United States of America, are going to influence and prioritize business and relations with everybody on the west side of the Atlantic Ocean, from Greenland all the way to, the tip of Argentina, down at the bottom of South America. Hasn't happened? Well, I would say not the way you or I expected. There was a lot of debt traps used. There were nasty assassinations. There were bribery and financial games being played. And it didn't sit well with everyone. There were things that presidents did, the Secretary of States did, the CIA did. They were detestable. I mean, the ends do not justify the means. Can't just go in there and cause color revolutions and break up leadership that doesn't agree with us or doesn't want to do business with us the right way. But that's what we did. I say we, I don't really mean we. I mean, there were factions inside our government that did it. The State Department did things the president didn't even know about, certainly didn't approve, or found out after the fact, and then politically either got destroyed by it or tried to figure out what he could do to cover it up or to make it right with the American people or cover it up. And frankly, it was embarrassing. And with the publication of a Diary of an Economic Hitman, which was a scathing expose about what was done in South America by the United States and what was, again, perpetrated in the Middle East by the Bushes, trying to destabilize and break apart Arab nations. It's embarrassing. And I would say in my youth, when someone would say, oh, America did this, and we would say, oh, no, we didn't, I would always believe America, wouldn't you? I mean, didn't you always say, oh, those, Iranians, those pesky Syrians, they're just lying. But then I found out later they weren't lying. We were actually doing those things. We were actually, either paying warlords with weapons or money in order to do the dirty work that our State Department wasn't willing to do. And then there were movies made about it and books written about it. Oh, wow. It broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I came to a point in my life, which I would say I was in my 40s or 50s, somewhere in there, that at least I started considering the other guy's point of view. At least I started considering what was their reasoning for doing what they were doing against the United States. And then sometimes I found out that they were right. So payback is a bitch. And sometimes the people of South America pay the price. But for sure, what happens is the hemisphere, that is to say the Western Hemisphere, is in trouble. It's in trouble right now, tonight. Because, we've been sending weapons, intelligence, money to Ukraine. And specifically, well, I would say since Bill Clinton was president, yes, since Bill Clinton was president in 1992, Bill Clinton promised Vladimir Putin that NATO would not move 1 inch eastward. Putin took him at his word. In fact, Russia tried to join NATO after the wall came down, right? Remember in 91? So after the wall came down, Putin tried to join NATO. Well, that was not even considered. And in many cases, the UN literally just walked out of every speech that the Russians tried to make in the UN. Embarrassing. And NATO marched ever eastward, and they took over 63 sovereign countries. They assassinated presidents, they blackmailed, they set debt traps, and they tried to do it in Ukraine. They wanted to get into Ukraine, and in 2014, that was set up, and Putin said, "No, that's the line. I told you years ago, if you come here, you're going to be in trouble on the battlefield." Well, that Putin, that Vladimir Putin, he's such a pesky guy. He bluffs all the time. Well, he wasn't bluffing. He wasn't bluffing. And he crossed the border and made an effort to denazify the eastern part of Ukraine and defend the ethnic Russians that lived in eastern Ukraine. So the statement was made, I believe it was pretty close to 10 years later. The war started in 2014 when Victoria Nuland and John McCain and Kerry decided to attack Ukraine and attempt to assassinate the president, whose name was Viktor Yanukovych. They tried to assassinate him. He escaped with his life. He's still alive, living, I believe, in Moscow. He is Crimean by birth. They tried to assassinate him. He escaped with his life, and Victoria Nuland began a bloody war against eastern Ukraine, killing at least 14,000 adults that we know of, and creating a huge population of orphans. We're not sure, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 children, because their parents were dead. The Americans and the Nazis, yes, Nazis, not neo-Nazis, original Nazis from World War II Nazis, full tattooed SS on the uniforms, Nazis, okay, skulls on their uniforms, Nazis. They killed them, and so it left these orphans. And the detestable thing is that they were selling the orphans all over the world. They were selling the orphans, and they were using them in medical experiments and organ harvesting. Absolutely, absolutely just heart-wrenching stories. It was so bad that when President Trump was running in 2016, he had become the nominee. May 26th of 2016, he became the nominee. They sent a woman who her last name was Vizhelnitskaya, Natalia Vizhelnitskaya, I believe is her name. They sent her over. She got a special visa to come over. She met with Donald Trump and I believe Eric Trump. It's a possibility Eric Trump was in this meeting. And she poured her heart out to them, asking them, begging them to support the policy of forbidding the sale and the adoption of Russian children by America. Well, of course, the Trumps didn't know diddly shit about this, so they basically ran from that meeting. But it turned out to be true. So when the special military operation occurred, the very first thing that Vladimir Putin did is he started his convoy, which, by the way, was aimed for Kiev as one of the most brilliant military feints in history. He started out that convoy with buses. And the buses went to the orphanages, and they emptied the orphanages of those more than 10,000 children, a lot of children. They rescued them and took them to Moscow to their relatives where they live today. So all of this disingenuous talk that you've heard by stupid people like Mark Levin and these stupid idiots out there who are demanding that Putin return these children to their parents. It's all lies. Putin cannot return those children to their parents because their parents are dead. Victoria Nuland and her Nazi Azovs killed them. I bring this all to your attention because this has caused a situation where Vladimir Putin is in a position to help our enemies. Yeah, just like we did, we would go and we would work with the enemies of Russia and we would feed them weapons and we would feed them intel and we would train their Mujahideen fighters and whatever to go after the Russians and fight them in Afghanistan and fight them in Syria and wherever they were, we would support Putin's enemies and we would fight them. Well, that tactic is now being used against us. Russia has now rubber stamped legislature, which was passed an intergovernmental agreement on military cooperation with the communist government of Cuba. This happened yesterday. We're not talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is brand new shit here. You probably don't even know about it. This agreement was signed yesterday. It was formalized an already existing alliance providing cannon fodder for the invasion of Ukraine. It's payback. And Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro also announced yesterday that he had solidified a strategic partnership with Russia that could allow Moscow greater ability to leverage influence in the Western Hemisphere, our hemisphere, challenging the U.S. Yeah, we're talking 4 hours subsonic, around 4 hours, 3.5 to 4 hours. It's our doorstep. Now, according to, and this is not the coast, this is actual targets inside the United States. So according to the Russian news agency TASS, the upper house of the Duma ratified an agreement that will provide legal grounds to define the goals, areas, and forms of this bilateral military cooperation. We're not talking about economic cooperation. We're not talking about trade routes. We're not talking about cyber support. We're talking about weapons. Why? Because we've been sending weapons to Ukraine, ostensibly Russia's enemy, and Russia is going to turn around and send weapons to our enemy, Venezuela. And it suggests that this cooperation already existed between the two countries informally. It was secret. They were doing it, but we couldn't really tell you, the American people, because you wouldn't understand. But now it's formal. The agreement is one step below the commitments of the Mutual Defense Treaty. I got to take a quick break. Please, please, please don't go away. Don't go away. I'm taking some powerful drugs right now, and one of them is talking. I'll be right back. That's going to be fun. Sorry for the dead air. Hold on a second. Camera back on. Yeah, sorry about that. Doctors are funny people. I said, I have a 2-hour radio program on Wednesday nights. Oh, you could make it 2 hours. Don't worry about that. Yeah, we made it, 20 minutes? All right, let's continue. So, the agreement's one step below the commitments of the Mutual Defense Treaty that Russia signed with North Korea. You remember, this was just June of last year. Okay, just a little over a year ago, signed this agreement with North Korea. And what did North Korea do? Well, they sent troops to fight in Ukraine for Russia. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Why would North Korea open themselves to that kind of retribution? Because it's great training. It's great training. North Korea hasn't fought anybody in 70 years. The original troops, they're old now. Maybe some of them are still alive. And so North Korea needs a fresh batch of battle-hardened troops. Hence, they send them. And let me tell you, North Koreans are tough as nails. Last time I was in Korea, not North Korea, but South Korea. Wow. Some of the people that I met with, it was in the business, but they also served in the military. And these guys were tough as nails. I mean, like martial arts. Terrible. Terrible fighters. Endless endurance. Alexander Stepanov, who is Russian military expert, he said that the military agreement with Cuba was a form of retaliation against Trump for his ongoing support of Ukraine. And in particular, it concerns that the United States may soon provide Ukraine with Tomahawk cruise missiles. This is a line that Putin was afraid that they're going to cross. Now, they have the ATACMS, right? The ATACMS missiles, but the S-400, and I think the S-300, but for sure the S-400 can take the ATACMS out. Now, they don't have the S-400s everywhere, but they have deployed something like 3,500 of them. It's a good amount. And there's, I would say, a very narrow alley in the western part of Russia. Russia's a huge territory, but there's a very narrow alley that the ATACMS can go through, and it doesn't lead to Moscow. It leads out into the Siberian desert somewhere. In order to make the turn and get to Moscow with an ATACMS, there's no path to success for them. The S-400s will take them out. And that's why they have used drones several times to try to attack these forward surveillance stations. That's what they call them. These surveillance stations inside of Russia to stop that listening. Now, of course, the interesting thing is that the same corridor that they launched the drones to take out the forward listening stations in Russia also creates a pathway to Iran. Yeah, so this early listening corridor can be used as early warning for Iran as well. The Russians rebuilt it lickety-split. Only took them about 7 or 8 days, I think, to get it back up and running. But still, there was that vulnerability. Still, they tested it and it worked. But the line gets crossed with the Tomahawks because the Tomahawk is a cruise missile. Now, the cruise missiles that you have seen videos of, they're flying at about 500 to 1,000 feet. This is probably right prior to, or to try to cross a lot of territory for which they do not have ALS data. In other words, automatic level control systems data. So they fly high enough, they're not going to scud run and run into a mountain. But Tomahawks are very stealthy because they fly subsonic, about 630 miles an hour. They're very powerful. They can carry nuclear tips, and they fly below the radar, like 50 feet off the ground. If it's after dark and you happen to be in your backyard having a cold one by your gas fire on your patio, it's after dark, you're on the patio, you're having a cold one, and a cruise missile comes overhead at 50 feet. You're going to jump out of your skin. But the exposure time is about 1 second. And if you're inside your house, asleep, playing a video game, watching TV, and one goes overhead, you're going to say, wow, that jet was low. And that's all you're going to know. By then, it's too late. That thing is traveling so fast. It's traveling 10 miles a minute. 10 miles a minute. By the time you hit 911, that thing's already 15 miles up the road. By the time you get somebody on the phone and say, hey, something very fast just came over my house, I believe it was headed north, it's already 15 miles up the road and flying fast. Cruise missiles cross the line for Putin. He knows this. He knows that if we launch or cause to be launched, because we're not going to give Tomahawk missiles to nobody. We're not going to just ship Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. So here you go. Launch these Tomahawks anytime you get ready. No, it doesn't work that way. The launch codes and the intel, or should I say the technology to fly a program and fly a Tomahawk missile, it's ours. It belongs to us. These things cannot be hacked, and we're not sharing the technology with anybody. Raytheon makes them. Get out of our way, right? That means we're involved. That means we have now entered the not defensive, but offensive game against Russia. Now we know that there's been some conversation about the Tomahawk cruise missiles, and I would say at least conversation. I can't go any further than that because I don't have any proof. But I can say that at least in conversation, the Tomahawk cruise missiles have been discussed. And Stepanov says this is about a symmetrical response to the potential supply of the Tomahawks. The ratified agreement maximally expands our military cooperation and allows, within the framework of bilateral interaction and in coordination with the government of the Republic of Cuba, which is 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Remember I said these things travel 10 miles a minute. That's 9 to 10 minutes to cross the coast, the border at the coast, and then 10 or 15 more minutes to get hit any target up and down the eastern seaboard with pinpoint accuracy. And they're going to deploy virtually any offensive system on the island's territory, nuclear tipped or otherwise. Now, absent from Stepanov's analysis is the fact that the Ukrainian government has already captured and identified Cuban nationals fighting on the part of Russia in Ukraine. Again, more training, more coordination, more understanding the battle systems, and experiencing the battlefield, which makes for formidable officers. We're not talking about theory anymore. We're talking about really having experienced battle, okay? So in March of this year, we're just in October, right? So we're talking about 19 months ago. The Ukrainian government announced the capture of a man named Frank Dario Jarosay Manfuga of Guantanamo. Now, Jarosay is a musician who thought he was taking a construction job when he arrived in the Ukraine war theater. He was captured when he was accidentally ran into a Ukrainian war trench instead of a Russian one. And in subsequent interviews, Jarosay insisted that he did not know he was signing up to fight for Russia. Whatever. Speaking at a House of Representatives hearing in September, Andriy Yusov, a spokesman for the Ukrainian military intelligence, estimated that as many as 20,000 Cuban men are fighting for Russia in the invasion. 20,000. Cuba's ranked at the top of the list of sources of foreign mercenaries, along with Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda usually fights for the Ukrainian side, but they'll fight for whoever pays them. And currently, our good intelligence tells us about 20,000 people from Cuba who have already filled out the documents and have been recruited to fight for Russia. Now, there's a lawmaker named Marian Zablotsky, who in May first revealed the estimate of 20,000 Cubans fighting for Russia, testified at the same hearing that much of the aid Russia is relying on to continue the invasion comes from 3 countries listed by the United States as state sponsors of terrorism. And you know who they are, right? They're Iran, they're Cuba, and they're North Korea. And we're not even getting into Venezuela yet, but I will bring that up. So without the military support from state sponsors of terror, Russia would have already stopped their attack. This is what Zablotsky asserted. I don't actually think that's true. I think he brings that to bear partly for cost sharing, but also for cross-training, because if you have a bigger, more diversified fighting force, you have now a coalition of the willing. We do the same thing. When we go to fight somebody, the first thing that happens is the president, Marco Rubio, whoever picks up the phone, and they call Hungary, and they call Poland, and they call Italy, and they call Greece, and they say, we need you to send 5,000, send 5,000, send 10,000, send 20,000, send 30,000 Brits, right? We build a coalition as well. Russia's doing the same thing. It's not that crazy, and I don't think that the effort to defeat Ukraine would end if they didn't build the coalition of the willing. But I did a count, and Putin has about 111 countries. I just mentioned 4 here. There are 111 countries in his coalition. How many does the U.S. have? Well, I suppose we could maybe officially say we have the UN, but do you really think we do? Do you really think we have the undying, loyalty of every country in the UN? Seriously? No, I don't think so. I think you have opportunism going on. Yes, there are some people who could launder money and make themselves rich, as most industrialists do during a war, but undying loyalty, nah, I'm not buying it. Poles wouldn't be there. Czechs wouldn't be there. Italians wouldn't be there. Greeks definitely wouldn't be there. Come on. I don't think we have 111 countries. Putin does because he's keeping his word, and he's fighting the same enemy we are, believe it or not. And yeah, you bring up a very good point, Tatanka Dave, that the United States needs to let Cuba be free. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, what? I mean, okay, the freedom that I see for Cuba is the 1959 Cuba, right? With the cabanas and the gambling and, the hourly flights from Fort Lauderdale to Havana and the gaming and everything that went on, and the huge entertainment of people were making a fortune, but not the government. Not the government. That's where Castro and his friends said, I'll be damned, that's not going to happen on my watch. And so he took it all over, and all of that ended. And, the Desi Arnaz Cuba disappeared, right? That Cuba disappeared. So what I think that's free Cuba to me, is free enterprise. Let the Cuban people display their talents and build the American market again. The hour away or 30 minutes away market that they had in the 50s. Let that open back up again. The whole country would blossom. It would be Singapore. It would be freaking Singapore. In 10 years, you wouldn't even recognize it. But the government of Ukraine announced a major effort to expand its diplomatic outreach in Latin America 3 months ago. That's Western Hemisphere, folks. Embassies in the Dominican Republic, in Panama, in Uruguay, in Ecuador. Why? To combat Russia's successful partnerships with leftist regimes in the region. So, is it working? I don't think so. The matter of military cooperation with Russia is separate from that of the strategic partnership with Venezuela, but related, as Cuba and Venezuela are close geopolitical partners that have completely different capabilities. Cuba doesn't have the resources that Venezuela does. Cuba doesn't have the former legacy as the richest country in South America with the oil and coffee and unbelievable resources that Venezuela has. But Maduro announced the signing of the decree for cooperation yesterday, accompanied by Russian ambassador to Caracas, Sergei Milik Bagdasarov. And I don't know Bagdasarov, but I suspect he is an economic powerhouse. On October 7th, the Venezuelan president Maduro was invited, who is in solemn atmosphere and in the presence of the country's leading TV channels, signed a decree on the entry into force of the Russian-Venezuela Strategic Partnership and Cooperation Agreement. Does this worry President Trump? Abso-freaking-lutely. Does it worry Marco Rubio? It should be the most worrisome thing on his table right now. Yes. I know he's working with a peace agreement with Hamas. He's working on that. That's going to be a great feather in his cap if he can work this out and get the hostages done. But that's not the big deal. The big deal tonight is Venezuela. That agreement, and of course, this is according to local media. I got to go by that primarily. It goes beyond the scope of military cooperation. It touches on the development of mechanisms that facilitate commerce. Like, we're talking about oil, we're talking about gold, we're talking about coffee, we're talking about all the resources that Venezuela has. A major amount of commerce and investment, billions, maybe even trillions of dollars. Russia has unbelievable resources, and so does China. Investment. And, okay, as I started out talking about the Monroe Doctrine, where the United States adopted a policy, stay out of our hemisphere, right? This is our hemisphere. We will develop it as we see fit. Well, this flies in the face of that, Earth Explorers. This is the Western Hemisphere, but we are talking about European, very strong, very wealthy, at least European, and maybe even partnered with China. Like, China is very active in Chile, in Peru. They've built some super ports that are capable of housing military vessels along the west coast of South America, certainly within striking distance of the west coast of America. I mean, serious, like big ships, like big shipping container ships, but also big carriers, frigates, destroyers, things like that. Of course, it costs a lot of money, billions of dollars to build these ports. But it's in the Western Hemisphere, you understand? It's in the Western Hemisphere, which means it's going to conflict with our dream of the Western Hemisphere. And the Russian government has for a long time used Venezuela to intimidate the United States militarily. Back in 2018, Russian and Venezuelan news agencies reported that the Maduro regime would allow the Russian government to build a military base on the island of La Orquilla. And Russia also flew nuclear-capable jets in Venezuela, mere hundreds of miles from the United States that year. We're talking minutes from deployable positions, minutes. No, we didn't do anything. I mean, if we did, we'd just pick up the phone and say, hey, back off. But we didn't do anything. That's why you see so much Navy in this area, I think. Yes, we're blowing up a boat or two here and there, but I think, where we were talking about the Persian Gulf or the Suez or the Mediterranean, now it's this region. Venezuela signed the cybersecurity deal with Russia in June. This is a major vulnerability for us and for everybody in the free world, alongside more than 10 different countries. And I would say we're probably talking about 25 countries. I don't know them all, but I'd say we're talking about 25 countries, but they include Cuba and North Korea, which we know for sure the North Koreans are highly capable in the cyber world. And I would say the Cubans have been listening and messing with the United States for decades. They have a lot of experience hearing things and doing things. All right. I think you're right, Delamiao, because I met Marco and I met Ted Cruz, and I would say my takeaway from it was that they had a rivalry about who signed the best legislation, and it really ruined both of their chances to run for president. The quibbling and the arguing over that particular point, and they're both super accomplished speakers. They're able to memorize this entire speeches and give them impromptu. Both very formidable statesmen. I think if you were to say who would make the better Secretary of State, would it be Ted Cruz or would it be Marco Rubio? I don't actually know. I think Marco Rubio has come into his own. Marco Rubio has the authority to do what he always wanted to do without any of the baggage. He can just do what President Trump guides him to do, and he can do it to the best of his ability. And his best is better than most people's best. Put it that way. And the same with Ted Cruz. But I met both of them, and I had the takeaway that they're both just lawyers. They just want to argue. They just want to make a case, and they want to win. But they don't have the depth of field that it takes to be president. So I think that Marco Rubio is very happy to be out of the Senate. He is absolutely a kick-ass Secretary of State, absolutely kick-ass. And I think Ted Cruz would have been as well. For a long time during the original 2015, 2016 campaign, I was a Cruzite. I liked Ted Cruz. I thought he was the premier statesman of our day. As I saw the battle begin to take shape, I could see that Ted Cruz was too single-dimensional, and Trump was multi-dimensional. Trump could handle his own on a multiple of levels, on engineering, on economics, on moral arguments. Trump had been making his case for 25 years publicly. And he didn't deviate from that. He went back, to the Rona Barrett days and to the Oprah Winfrey days. And it was the same guy. It was the same policy, same guy. Nothing had changed. And that's what won him. That's what won him the election in 2016. And I believe won him the election in 2020. Now, if you look at the Trump presidency, you had one term in office, you had one term in exile, and you had a third term in office. And that we're not done with that yet. All right, we're just 9 months into it. The point is that it's going to be a 12-year presidency. And it really, in this day and age, because of the people you have to train and bring along, some of them, 17 years old in the first round are now 30, and they've now graduated and they're in their own, and now they're Charlie Kirks and they're, people of stature who are loyal and who are talented and who are focused. But they've been in training for 10 years. They've been in training for 10 years, 12 years, and now they're great warriors. Oh, you were a Rand Paul guy, original dog. Well, I mean, I like the libertarian standpoint. I think Rand Paul in his day had the right take on just about everything, but he didn't have the voice. He just didn't have the charisma to put behind it. He didn't have a track record of anything except being a legislator. And I'd be dead honest with you. Never seen a congressman ever make a good president. I've rarely seen a senator make a good president. I mean, it's rare. Like, they killed Kennedy, but that was rare. Obama was a ridiculous joke. Senators don't make good presidents because they owe too much. By the time they get in the Senate, and I would say the first term is the most vulnerable. By the time they get to the second term, they're done. The John McCain's, John Kerry's, they're done. They're finished. They're so owned by some other force. There's some force so far up their spine, they don't think for themselves at all. They're just a voice. They're just a face. I don't think senators make good presidents at all. I am convinced that businessmen make the best presidents. I was a Ross Perot guy just for that reason. He was a little squeaky, right? He was a little big-eared, squeaky pain in the ass, but he had the right idea about a lot of things, and he made a hell of an independent run for the presidency in 92. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break. Please don't go away. Give me a chance to drink a little coffee here, and we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. I got more stuff to come. All right, stuff from California that's going to blow your mind. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Tune in to the Family Industrial Complex podcast here on Revolution Radio, Studio B, every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Get fit, empowered, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
The rooster has crowed out the opening bars of a new day. You've dragged yourself out of bed. You turn on your device. You want to know what's going on in the world. But you're hungry for a topical show that serves up those breakfast headlines just that little bit differently. Do you like your early morning news the way you like your eggs over easy? Served with slathers of salsa-like sass? Do you like those first headlines of the day to deliver a punch as powerful as that first cup of joe? Join Mitchell Bupp at his breakfast table for Revolution in the Morning, where he will digest, dissect, and dismantle those new day's national and global news headlines with razor-sharp relish. Find Mitchell here at revolution.radio every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Studio B.
Through everything, we have to remember that we have more in common than not in common. And to find this common ground, tune in to Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio A. Because we come to this table of life to learn in the best possible way and experience this gift of life from our mutual Creator. So let's learn together and build our best future with Conversations with Eagle Flower, Wednesdays, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Studio A on Revolution Radio.
I will defend myself against their tyranny. Number 3 is my radio broadcast. I'm squarely in front of the public all the time, and they all know what's going on.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on public means for expanding its sphere of influence.
Hello, my name is John Wayne, and I do a broadcast here at freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, called The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
Freedom and fear are at war.
And folks, I assure you, we are in Defense Mission 1, as we journey perilously through this paradigm that we currently reside in. And I ask that you join me every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for The Unequivocal Truth, DEFCON 1.
We shall never surrender.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for hanging in there while we took that short break. Now back to America Free Radio with host Brooks Agnew here at Revolution Radio.
Wow, we really thank Revolution Radio for that great station identification. We love our Revolution Radio listeners. They are listening by audio out there through TalkStream Live and Orange Radio and iHeartRadio and TuneIn. And we would be nowhere without you guys. You're 4 million listeners strong, and we need you out there. Please remember to go to freedomslips.org, and make us a part of your regular donation. This is the largest listener-supported network in the entire country. There's no NPR, there's no PBS, there's only you, okay? This network doesn't get any money from any government. It only gets it from us. So please make it a regular donation, $2, $3, $4 a month. You won't miss it. But if 100,000 of you do it, we can change the world. You understand what that means, right? Rebellions are built on hope. So come and get some right here. freedomslips.org. Go there, make a donation. I hope I inspired you. All right, so the rest of you are looking at the video screen, which shows my America Free Radio homepage. We're going to scroll down just a little bit, and we're going to go to my, let's see, I think we can go directly to the store from here. No, maybe we can't. I should fix that. No, here it is, visit my store. Okay, we'll do that. This will skip by the homepage of brooksagnew.com and just will go straight to the store. So here we are, Brooks Agnew store. We're going to click on the health and aging because that's all we have time to cover tonight. If you click on health and aging, you're going to see right there, right there at the top, you're going to see your source for Ivan and Roxy. Those of you that listen to this program, you know what that means. Obviously, I cannot advertise, but Ivan and Roxy have healing properties for all kinds of things you are familiar with. You don't have a prescription, don't worry about it. I make the connection directly with the manufacturer for you. All you do is buy the digital report from me, and the money that you spend with me goes to the pharmacy in Japan, and off it goes, and the samples are headed for you directly. Remember, we do not sell medications of any kind on this program. It says right here, big bold print, all right? The samples are sent directly to you from the manufacturer direct. That's how it works. I know it's a little shell game, but that's what we have to do. You can buy the Ivan, you can buy the Roxy. And don't forget that you can also buy the fenbendazole. All you have to do is click the button and it will take you directly to the site on Amazon where you can get it. That's how it works. All right, let's go back just a little bit because we got stuff we have to talk about. True Niagen also helps you build NAD in your system. Nicotinamide riboside is a key molecule that you need in your body. You stop making it pretty much when you're 45 and you start aging. You make old cells, your brain, your eyes, your skin, and you begin to age. If you're able to keep that NAD production in your body up, you can stave off the aging. Now, you've been to my website, you've seen my picture. That picture's from 9 years ago. 9 years ago. I have not aged in that much time. I've been doing True Niagen now for almost 8 years. That's how it's done. I'm living proof that it works, okay? Insulus. Now, I'm starting back up on Insulus because they're concerned that my A1C numbers got up a little bit. This Insulus is designed to knock your A1C numbers back down in the normal range. If you click the Order Now button, you're going to go into my back office at Abetu. Abetu Naturals is the only manufacturer of Insulus. Insulus is patented. Insulus works. 5 drops under the tongue a couple times a day, and your A1C numbers come down, and your doctor will be surprised. If yours is in the 10, 11 range, and your doctor's saying, oh, you are pre-diabetic, you want to get it back down in the 4 to 6 range, This is the tincture that does it. Believe me, it is even getting people off insulin. It's that good. So shop now, and don't forget to use the discount code Brooks. Use the discount code Brooks, Brooks, and you will get an additional discount. And don't forget about the Novolytic. Those people that live in the city or you're exposed to chemtrails, not everybody is, but if you are, you're being exposed to toxins that are making your blood cells clump together. That means the cells cannot get through the capillaries the way they're supposed to. Novolytic helps with this. It breaks up the single blood cells and allows them to flow again. Go back and watch the episode we did with Maria Chrysler, the developer of Novolytic, and you'll see what I'm talking about with the scanning electron microscope videos. And don't forget about Blue Boost. Those of you that are familiar with methylene blue, you know what it does. It gives you that laser focus. But you don't want to use the eyedropper and make your tongue blue or make your water blue at the restaurant or dribble it on your tie or carpet. I understand that. That's why I use Blue Boost. Blue Boost gives you all the benefits of the methylene blue without the mess because it's in capsule form in a vegetarian capsule. All right, let's get back to it because we got stuff we have to talk about. All right, let's see here. Yeah, let's get back to it. If you're familiar with the race for governor in California, you might have been exposed to this, the end of Ms. Porter's political career. She's not, I don't know, she's not one of those candidates that you're really attracted to right away, Katie Porter. She doesn't have the look. Okay, she just doesn't have the look. She's disheveled. It's hard to make somebody who physically doesn't take care of themselves look gubernatorial, to look good. Okay, you got to do a little running, Katie. You got to do something with that hair. But we're not just talking about the physical appearance. Katie Porter was actually sounded a lot like Hillary Clinton. Like, what do you mean I won't win all the Democrat vote? Of course I'm going to win all the Democrat. Nobody's going to dare run against me. Well, yeah, they are. And they probably take care of themselves a little bit better. So, the interviewer said, but you're saying you don't need any Trump voters. It's sort of like having a restaurant and you say, I don't want anybody that voted for President Trump eating in my restaurant. Well, freaking good luck. That's good luck. Do you think you can make a successful restaurant by pissing off 55% of your clientele? No, especially since Trump supporters are the ones with jobs. Trump supporters are the ones that actually go out and eat and pay their credit card bills. You need those customers. But to just sign them off and say, I don't need any Trump voters, I think, Ms. Porter, you're done. And that's all the time I'm going to give you on my program. So let's talk a little bit about Chicago. And there are a lot of battles going on. I don't have enough time to cover them all. We got Portland, we got Chicago, we got New York, we got Boston. Woo has got big problems in Boston. But nothing like Chicago's Democrat Mayor Brandon. You've seen this guy? You've watched Brandon on TV? Wow. I don't know. This little, microcosm world that he lives in. Like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing, that was so good. That was great. He's not great. Okay. And yesterday he said that the Chicago police should arrest ICE agents and, of course, other federal officers who he claims are breaking his new executive order aimed at hampering immigration reinforcement. Because he knows Chicago has in excess of 120,000 registered illegal aliens registered to vote. And they know that if these illegal aliens don't vote, there's a good chance that's Fatboy Pritzker and Brandon, are going to lose their election. It's like do or die for them. They have to protect them. So Monday, Johnson signed a executive order. We talked about it on Sunday night. And the executive order created what are known as ICE-free zones. And, I mean, the idea is to ban federal agents from using city-owned properties as staging areas for immigration enforcement. You have to stage outside the city, and then you have to come in and do your thing. Well, that's a little difficult to do if you can't meet up in the Walmart parking lot. And, of course, the proclamation comes at exactly the same time that President Trump has suggested that the anti-ICE actions by Chicago's leader are akin to an insurrection against the federal government. And when President Trump uses the words insurrection and he sprinkles them, you know how he does, right? Not once, not twice, but 3 times or more. He sprinkles the word insurrection in through his speeches. That's for a reason. It's for a reason, because what he's doing is he's priming your psyche. He's priming the public farmland, shall we say, with the word insurrection, because there is an insurrection act that was that was passed long time ago in the late 1800s that gives the president the power to take federal action in state areas where there's an insurrection happening. And he says, here's the deal, Mr. Brandon, Mr. Fatboy Pritzker. It's a crime, okay? Here's the thing. Anyone who commits a crime should be charged. And it's a basic rule of what they ostensibly refer to as law and order. Of course, the first one that says that wins, right? No, not necessarily. To say, well, no one's above the law, meaning President Trump's not above the law. It also means you are not above the law. And he's loud, he's boisterous, bellicose. But Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling is not going to arrest federal officers. Not going to do it. And he noted that he can't really expect Chicago Police Department officers to arrest the federal law enforcement because somebody deems what they are doing is illegal. It has to be a judge. It has to come through a court, right? And it isn't. It's only coming from Mayor Brandon's office. Snelling also told the press that the Chicago Police Department has no duty to interfere in ICE activities. We do not interfere with the duties and responsibilities of federal agents. We don't have to agree with it. It doesn't matter. But we're not going to stand in the way of it. We're not going to arrest federal agents trying to enforce federal law. That would be straight up nullification. That would be straight up sedition. That would be straight up civil war. I know you think civil war is when the people all get this big scrum going in the middle of the street and there are pepper balls flying and tear gas flying and bicycles flying and cops flying. And that's not civil war. That's just unrest. That's just chaos. Civil war is what happens when the civil authority, that would be the governor, that would be the mayor, take official positions that nullify or secede from the federal government. That's civil war. That's what wars are fought over. In fact, we fought a war, and more than 1 million Americans died in that war, and we know what the result is, right? And Johnson does not have direct support for this. He has 6 or 7 people standing behind him, on the camera screen, and they're going, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're clapping. They're going, yeah, get him, Brandon. That's not a coalition of the willing, for sure. And of course, he makes threats. We're going to see people in court. Of course you will. And as far as other authority that allows us to enforce this ordinance, we're exploring, which means he doesn't have it. There's not a judge in the country that's going to say, yes, you can tell ICE they can't pick up these people breaking federal law in your city. No, that's not exactly true, Brandon. You can't do that. So over the weekend, news broke that police officials had ordered the police not to respond to calls for help from federal law enforcement officers who were under siege in Chicago by violent pro-illegal immigrant activists. This got their butt in a ringer, let me tell you, because President Trump is now mad enough to send in the National Guard. If you won't protect the citizens of Chicago, we will. And I think you know who's going to win that pissing match. And it ain't going to be Mayor Brandon. It ain't going to be Mayor Brandon. And Superintendent Snelling denied that the Chicago Police Department has been ordered to stand down. He's not going to admit it. He's not going to say, oh, yeah, Brandon gave us this order. If these guys are in trouble and, ICE, the anti-ICE demonstrators, the Antifa thugs are moving in on them with baseball bats and knives and guns, we're just going to let them have them. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the checkered hat brotherhood is way stronger than Brandon. So you watch for this to fall apart this week. All right. Anyway, it's entertaining, is it not? Right? I don't know, JCW. Let me address that for a second. JCW says, let's get ready for a police state. I don't really think so. A police state is like, don't nobody move in this city unless you pass the checkpoints. That's 2 SS for me. A 2 SS for anybody. Nobody's going to put up with that. But it has been a chaotic state for a while. I mean, 30, 60, 70 people a weekend shot in Chicago. That's a chaotic state. Every single time I've gone to Chicago, it doesn't matter where I stay, the Fairmont, the North Shore, doesn't matter where I stay, you can hear gunfire, through the night. And that's bullshit, man. We're not talking about Baghdad or Damascus or Gaza. We're talking about Chicago, right? We're talking about Wacker Street with the most highly paid attorneys in the entire country. We're talking about shopping districts and park districts that are glorious in Chicago. I love the nightlife in Chicago. I love the blues. I love the meals, right? It's awesome. Chicago's an amazing city. It almost never sleeps. No, I'm not talking about martial law either. I'm not talking about martial law. If the Insurrection Act of 1870 is invoked, this will not affect anybody except the people that are in the streets at night hurting people. In fact, I would venture to say that the people that are locked up in those condos downtown or in those many fine hotels, either waiting to watch a baseball game or the Bears or whatever, that are worried about taking an Uber or a cab or walking to the game won't be worried anymore because it'll be a safe place, right? You don't have to, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you have nothing to worry about. If you are not a citizen, you're in the country illegally, You should take the money, load up the minivan, and get to the border as quick as you can and get the hell out. And go to the American consulate once you get out of the country and start the process for coming back in and reclaiming your empire. That's the only way, folks. That's the pathway that's laid out for you. It's peaceful, it's legal, and it is successful. Do it. Do it. To ride this train of rhetoric by saying, you're disappearing me, you're kidnapping me, you're just screwing yourselves. If you are picked up in this manner, if you are zip-tied and you are deported, you are never coming back. Get it? You're never coming back. You just lost your money. You lost your education. You screwed your children out of a future that they could have had. They could have had if you would have just taken the money and left the country. They're being very generous. They could just kick your ass out. They could force march you to the border, shove you over the border and say, good luck. Good luck. But they're not. They're offering you money. They're offering you a flight. Take it and get out. Just because Biden said you could come, and just because Obama said you could come because they need you as a voter, you've been used. Listen, the facts are... What? Of course the citizens, boy dogs do. Of course the citizens of Chicago are begging Trump to come in. They don't want the bad optics, obviously. No, Trump doesn't either. But here's the deal. When we're talking about illegal aliens, we're talking about a slave class of being, right? There are more slaves now in America, children, single mothers, even single guys that have come to this country. They don't speak English. They have to have some kind of network to support them and find them work. And whether they're painting houses or hauling trash or plucking chickens or whatever it is the hell they're doing, they're slaves. They're slaves to the system. They're slaves to the cartel. And here's the crazy thing. There are blacks that own these slaves. Yes, there are black businesses who own these slaves. Now, get the irony in that. There are more slaves now in America, millions of them, from babies, young girls, young boys, underage workers, illegals who can't speak any English or barely speak any English. They're slaves, and they're owned by American businesses. And many of those businesses are run by blacks. And you know what? They're happy to do it. They're happy to have these slaves under them because, to them, it's the underclass. And they have to do what they're told to do, or the retribution is going to be terrible. You're going to be sent back to your country or worse, right? Yeah, of course there's irony in it. Oh, the irony is the least part of it, of course. But it's slavery. The very people that are talking about how bad slavery was and how we owe them reparations for it, whatever, white people, black people, etc. These are the people that are running the slave outfits. Oh, wow. I mean, it's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And what makes it worse is there's a cartel. I was going to say up and coming, but it's probably already arrived. A cartel that President Bukele tried to warn us about, and that is a judicial cartel. This is a cartel made up of federal judges, foreign-born mostly, not all of them, but mostly foreign-born federal judges who are making up a judicial cartel to oppose President Trump's policies. Every single one of Trump's policies, whether it's moving the National Guard here or there or here or there, or anything related to saving the country, making America great again, hundreds of them, they're all being opposed by federal judges. The Supreme Court has said, you can't exactly do that, but they're ignoring the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't have any teeth. I would say they have authority, but they don't have any teeth, and in least ways they're not willing to bite. And they're doing nothing about these judges. And President Bukele has said, here's the deal, okay? You have to impeach these judges. I know you don't want to. I took the heat for it in my own country. Believe me, they called me a dictator. They called me an overlord. They called me every name in the book. But I also know for a fact that if I did not do it, if I did not impeach this judicial cartel, we would have lost our country. It's called the reign of the judges, and it has happened for thousands of years. Every major civilization, at least in the Western Hemisphere, and certainly some in the Eastern Hemisphere, have been victims of these reign of the judges. You have to impeach these judges. And we're only talking about 140, 150 judges, which is not the whole system by any means. But if you impeached 2 or 3 dozen of them, they would get the freaking message, and the cartel would be disemboweled. But we've done nothing to them. Boasberg, and I could just go on and on and on. The list is unbelievable. These activist federal judges who are writing these temporary restraining orders and these universal injunctions against President Trump, stopping official Article 2 powers with their stupid judicial powers, which are not supposed to be there. I get that, Lucky, that blacks own blacks. I get that. That's history. I'm talking about current day, today. Blacks own Hispanics. Blacks own illegal aliens. And believe me, some of them are not Hispanics. They're Haitians. They're Africans. They come to this country and they are owned by black people. Yeah, black slave owners in 2025 inside America. You don't believe me? Well, you need to follow a few Cadillac Escalades around and you'll see what I'm talking about. Trust me, it's real. Trust me, it's real. So let's talk about the real employment picture. I'll give you a chance just to change gears here for a second. Yes, it is. Yes, it is happening, and I could spend a whole program on it. There are people that came into this country, they can't speak English, they don't know how to do things, and they're provided ownership, and a lot of the owners are black. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. It's a fact. It's a fact. There are way more slaves now in the United States than there ever have been. And no, they are not all owned by white people. What are the real employment figures in the U.S. right now? Where are we at? 4.2%, 3.4%? Who the hell knows, right? Well, I can tell you I was in the professional engineering field for a long, long time. And I can tell you that the best engineers, the best of the best engineers, maybe are employed 2, sometimes 3 years at a time. Now, I have seen them 5, 6 years at a time, but they make a lot of compromises for security, for their wives, for their kids, for school, and stuff like that. And these engineers, with their dreams and aspirations and liking to build things, and they settle in to supervisory jobs at manufacturing plants or processing plants, and they give up. They give up so they can stay employed. Is it great money? No, it's not. 70, 80, 90,000, sometimes $100,000 a year. And they've lost their dream. They've lost their dream. They could do so much better, but they don't, because the employment picture is not what you think it is. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of glad that I'm not a young adult looking for a job in this economic environment. I'm glad I'm not 25. I'm glad I'm not 30 or 35 looking for a job. Every single month, the Department of Labor, the federal bureaucrats, tell us that the unemployment rate in this country is low. But I can tell you at this very second, everyone knows the numbers that they are giving us are fake. They're fake. They're fake in North Carolina. They're fake right over down the street here in South Carolina. They're fake in Florida. They're fake in Texas. I'm telling you, the numbers are phony. The federal government doesn't know. And if they do know, they're lying to us. The reality of the matter is that employment right now is the toughest it's been in 30 years. No, I'm serious. Trust me, I struggled at the top of the game. I graduated in the top 0.1% of my class. I was hired by the 84th largest corporation in the world. Before I even graduated, they snatched me. I worked for them for a few weeks shy of 5 years. Why not 6 years? Because at 5 years, I would have been fully vested in my 401k. Now, in the corporate world, and you need to understand this in case you ever have one, not many people out there have 401ks anymore. And if they do, they're tapping into them all the time. You're not fully vested in your 401k. That is to say, you don't get the interest on the money, the matching funds that your company is putting in until 5 years. At 2 years, you're fine. 3 years, you're fine. You can borrow from it. Most people do. You know, pay for a baby, pay for a car repair, pay for home improvements, things like that. They don't ever save that 401k until it's worth $2 or $3 million. Nobody does. Nobody. It's a ridiculous game. But nobody makes it past 5 years. Why is that? Because until 5 years, that 401k doesn't belong to you. That 401k, all the interest that it's gaining because of the matching 2% or 3% or 5% that your company's been matching you every payday, it belongs to the company. It's a company asset. They borrow against it. It builds their stock portfolio. It's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. But when you hit 5 years, it does belong to you. And they don't want to give it to you because at 5 years, it's worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And that's just the basis of a 401k. That's the kind of interest base you want for a 401k, because at 20 years on compounding interest, that thing's worth $1 million or better. Who couldn't use $1 million to retire on, right? But you got this three-legged plan, right? We got Social Security, we got personal savings, and we got 401k. It's a three-legged plan. It's supposed to make up the balance of everybody's retirement, right? Gold and silver and stocks and mutual funds, et cetera, et cetera. The 401k leg is fake. It's fake, okay? To find a good job in the United States of America, it is very hard for young people. You're going to be replaced by an H-1B visa holder for sure, or the company that you're working for is going to sell either in a leverage buyout to the few owners that are now managers of that company. They're going to do a leverage buyout and buy the company. And what are they going to use for the leverage? Your 401k. They're going to use your 401k as the leverage to buy the company out. And of course, when they buy the company, now it's a whole new company. And the chances are that 401k doesn't transfer and it starts all over again. That's right. They do an LBO, a leverage buyout, and they use your 401k as a equity asset to make it happen, to leverage it to make it happen. They don't use their own money. They use your money. And some people out there, K.O. Kelly said she converted her 401k to silver a few years back. That you can do. You get out of the mutual funds game, because whether you're with Mass Mutual or Fidelity or Schwab or whoever your 401k is managed by, Mass Mutual is a big company that manages 401ks. It's designed to be a long-term, hands-off money growth system, but it never works out that way. Less than 5% of all the people that are in the 401k business actually use it in that way. 95% of the people use it as a bank, and they borrow against it. And as soon as they borrow against it, guess what? You're already killing your interest picture for the future. Because that's what people do. When it gets to be worth about $25,000, you go, oh, wow, I could, pay off my student loan. I could make a home improvement. I could add a bedroom on the house. I could, well, no one would use it to buy a car. No one would be that stupid. But yeah, I'm going to make another investment, because I'll tell you what, when during the Obama years, my 401k dropped almost 50% in value. You know what I was looking for? A way out. I was ready to pay the 10% hit and get the hell out of the 401k. They were killing me. They were stealing it faster than I could put it in. Everybody was losing money. Obama raped us. And the Democrats, you know what they want. They want your 401k money. They see the $30 trillion sitting in there. What do you think? How do you think BlackRock became so wealthy? BlackRock's us. BlackRock is the 401k manager. That's where they got the money to buy into all these companies. BlackRock didn't make any freaking money. You did. You made the money. And you became BlackRock. Except, minor problem. You have no voting rights. Nope. You forfeited, you proxied all your voting rights to a handful of people. Yeah, you see what's okay. I could go on and on. But according to Mark Mitchell, who's a Rasmussen Report survey guy, and it's going to be released here pretty soon. Just keep your eyes out for it, because it may happen this week. It may happen early next month. This poll shows that only 48% of U.S. adults under the age 30. Get ready. Are you sitting down? I'll give you a second. Let me take a sip of coffee. Sit down. %48 of U.S. adults under the age of 30 have a full-time job. I'm not shitting you. They're gigging. That means they have a 90-day contract, a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract. That's not full-time employment. Less than half. Well, doesn't that make the unemployment picture 50%? Well, yes, technically it does. But that's not the way the Department of Labor looks at it. The Department of Labor looks at it, well, you're gigging. You're in the gig economy. They say 48% of 18 to 29-year-olds say they have a full-time job, but they don't. That means that roughly 52% of the people absolutely do not have full-time jobs. And what's a full-time job? What is the rule number 1 on this program for economics? Oh, gosh, come on. I say it enough times. If you took my class, you'd understand. You are always self-employed. I don't care if you're a manager at McDonald's. I don't care if you work at Walmart for 10 years. I don't care if you work in a manufacturing facility or you work in government. You are self-employed. You have to face that. Your security begins with your left foot and ends with your right foot. Can I see a show of hands of people out there, if you're still working, have a job or had a job? How many people really believe they have job security? I rest my case. None. Nobody freaking has job security. Everybody knows, even if you're unionized, no, I'm not buying that. Even if you're unionized, you know you can be laid off Friday. And you got money put away for that. And you got somewhere in your psyche, you're going, Jesus Christ, I could get laid off Friday. If I got laid off Friday, my whole world would fall apart. How many TikTok videos, how many Instagram videos, how many X videos and Facebook videos are out there? Millions of them of people saying, I just lost my job. I have zero income. I don't even know. I watch this lady who got fired and she was working in Italy. She's young, 22, 23 years old. I don't know what she was doing in Italy. She didn't say. Didn't look all that sharp. Didn't look all that talented. Didn't even really have modeling capabilities, if you know what I mean. Like, she's not posing naked on the internet in Italy for somebody. I'm just ruling things out here. She just lost her job and she's got to be out of her company provided housing in 2 days, and she doesn't know what she's going to do with the rest of her life. What was that? Hold on. You're going too fast here. What did Victor David Hansen say? Have you heard? Oh, Victor Vescovo and his 5 Ocean Deeps expedition. He spent millions, building his own submersible. Yeah, I'm not going there with that. I thought it was something else. Old Lay says, I will dance on TikTok. You know that the top 25, let me finish. The top 25 earners on TikTok, they're all dancers. Yeah, I know, that's crazy, right? We're talking about talent here. We're talking about physical belly button talent. Top 25 earners. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? I'm ready for TikTok to go away. I know people have small businesses on there, but have you been ripped off yet? Have you ever clicked on the little orange thing and bought something and didn't get it? Twice. I've had it happen twice. Spent my $39 or whatever it was and never got the item. I mean, what are you going to do? Complain to TikTok? Oh, yeah, right. Those people don't even exist anymore. And by the way, if you hear of anything called Forex Trading Company, Forex, not 4X, Forex, F-O-R-E-X, Forex Trading Company, it's a scam. It's a scam. Don't give any money to Forex Trading Company. I speak from experience. Just telling you. Anybody named Lisa Kimberly or Forex Trading Company, you're going to get ripped off. And not a little bit amount of money, a lot of money. Yeah, I know. So you're 72. You want to dance? I don't know. I would prefer to see cooking or something creative, like a new skill I want to develop is art. I want to be a better painter. I miss Bob Ross. I miss him. And his son doesn't do anything for me. We need another Bob Ross. We need a guy, somebody out there with that wonderful, nurturing personality that will teach me how to paint faces, teach me the ins and outs of that. Yeah, old Lace got all her Bitcoin stolen. 6. I had 6 Bitcoin. What is that worth now? I don't know. I don't even want to know. It just gives me a real bad case of the red ass. 6 Bitcoin. Yeah. I have 20 Ethereum, actually now 22 Ethereum sitting out there, and I can't touch it. I can't get it. I can't get it to cash out. Oh, yeah, I got to send gas tokens on the blockchain to get it out. Bullshit. It's a ripoff. Don't play the game. Everybody gets ripped off. Yeah, there you go. $124,000, K.O. Kelly. 6 Bitcoin. Almost $750,000. That's enough to pay off a couple of houses. Somebody's got it. Somebody's picked up that 6 Bitcoin and just stole it from me as easy as pie because they called themselves Forex Trading Company. Yeah, sort of like the Forex.com, but not the Forex.com. So here's the alarming development in this whole thing, unemployment-wise. Vast numbers of our young adults are working low-paying part-time jobs, 2 of them sometimes, right now. And you know why? Because it's the only thing they can get. They're working 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, 4 hours a day. They're working from home, in the office. It's insane. I meet them. I see them all the time out there. As the employment market gets tighter, there's even going to be intense competition for those jobs. One of the things that I'm noticing in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg metro area, which goes from Hickory all the way down to Monroe, is the construction industry has fallen flat on its ass. Not kidding. Guys that are highly skilled, they have their own tools, they're experts, craftsmen in several trades. They're picking crumbs with the sparrows right now because there's no building going on. Of course, I just finished my house. We're working on the certificate of occupancy now. But right across the street from me, another spec builder just finished a house last month. It's all done. Grass is planted, house is painted, for sale signs out front. Guess what he doesn't have? Buyers. He has no buyers. And you know what's eating his ass right now? Interest. Interest on that house is eating that ass. And here's the kicker. He's a smart young guy. He's a good builder. He makes a nice mid-range house. He has 4 of them. He's $1 million in debt. And he's just barely 30 years old. He's going to go bankrupt because the housing market has completely evaporated in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. There's nobody working. There's a friend that I have who brokered workers for me for years. He's working at Amazon. He's working at Amazon as a picker because there's no freaking work. I'm just telling you, Earth Explorers. Day after day, large companies are slashing more and more high-paying positions. They can't afford them. They don't want people that are doing the work, not managing the work. ExxonMobil just announced it's eliminating 2,000 jobs. 2,000. Oil giant ExxonMobil is preparing to cut thousands of jobs worldwide in a corporate reshuffling. A spokesman for Exxon confirmed to Barron's yesterday that the company plans to out 2,000 jobs. You know what that represents? Almost 4% of the energy company's global workforce. What the hell? Energy? Drill, baby, drill. I thought energy was the hottest market in the world right now. No, it's not. And that's nothing compared to what's been going on in the tech industry. You want to know the real sad truth? All those ads you hear about cybersecurity, become an expert in this and that. 90 days, you can have a job and work from anywhere you want. You've heard the ads, right, on the radio? It's bullshit. Through September 15th, big tech companies had laid off not 2,000, not 100,000, 166,000 employees. And that's just this year. And the year ain't even over yet. We're not even to Christmas. I expect to see the pace of layoffs accelerate in the months ahead because so many industries are deeply troubled at this point. In recent days, we've been getting some extremely alarming warning signs from the auto industry. Ford just had to lay off a bunch of people. Ford had some problems with their aluminum supply. It appears to only be affecting Fords right now because Ford trucks use aluminum hoods and aluminum parts in their trucks to make them lighter and more fuel efficient. But here's the thing, the warning signs are stacking up for me. Okay. In the automotive industry, there are supply chains, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 3 means we make a part for a tier 2 company that puts something together. A tier 2 company makes something for the tier 1, and the tier 1 makes something, an assembly for the assembly plant itself, like at Nissan or like at Toyota. But we're talking about lots of parts, filters, brakes, wipers, lighting systems, right? And as of Sunday night, this last Sunday night, several of them filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In collapse comes just, its collapse comes just 2 weeks after subprime auto lender, I don't know if you know who they are, they're Tricolor Holdings. Tricolor Holdings buys paper, not from dealerships, but from car lots. It's called subprime. If you want to buy a new car, you want to go to Ford, you want to go to Chevy, you want to go to Toyota at the dealership, and you get Toyota Motor Credit or Ford Motor Credit. That's a prime lender. But if you're a bandit, like you have a 610 credit score and you have a 10-year-old car that you're trading in and $2,000 in cash, you're going to get a subprime note. It's going to be 8.5%, 9%. It's Tricolor is probably one of the big companies that buys that paper. Well, guess what? They went bankrupt. What do you mean they went bankrupt? Making that much money? They were, but they weren't because people aren't making their payments. It's just same thing that happened to the housing market during 2008. Yeah, there were a lot of people that owned homes. There were hairdressers that had 4 rental properties, right? What are they doing? What does a hairdresser do with 4 rental properties? Because they didn't need any money down and the banks were happy to lend the money. And guess what? The houses were vacant and like Florida is right now. Oh, no. Don't, no. I know you go to Florida, everything is booming. But you really want to know the truth of it, look up the vacancies in Florida. You look up the vacancies in Florida, it will cover the map. Tens of thousands of homes and townhomes empty. There's nobody in them. Oh, they're Airbnbs. Oh, I get it. Yeah, so they're rented 3, 4, 5 days a month in hopes of making that mortgage payment. They're storing cash in those houses. That's their bank. That's their bank. And the only way they're able to make the payments is if somebody rents that Airbnb 4 or 5 times a month. It isn't rented 25, 30 days a month. They're not making money on those houses. They're just holding their own. But look at the vacancies in Florida. Hottest business, hottest market in the country. Bar none. No income tax, right? Lots of people move from California. Lots of people moving from Colorado and Washington State. Well, we're out of time. We'll see you right here on America Free Radio on Sunday night. Peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do great things.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.